Welcome to the Wilkes Brothers Code of Ethics and Business Conduct training session. In today's training, we will cover two topics: Code of Conduct and Ethics training, as well as anti-harassment training. Wilkes Brothers employees and portfolio companies are guided by 5 core values: faith, the foundation by which we conduct our personal and business lives; integrity, empowering firm adherence to a code of ethics and values; team, belief that no man stands alone. Success comes from individual commitment to a group effort, combining diverse talent to reach an ultimate goal; growth, through perseverance, sharing successes and opportunities that have been afforded to us; loyalty, commitment and devotion to provide selfless service for the greater good to all those around us. In addition to these values, our compass is to develop self and others, lead hearts and minds, innovate daily, and deliver results. These values are a reflection of the overall organization and are values Wilkes Brothers expects all employees and businesses to uphold in their daily activities. Business units may have core values respective to their individual business unit, but those are in addition to the parent company values. Why is having a shared understanding of our core values important? It defines what is important to us. It gives organizations a competitive edge. It provides organizational clarity in all circumstances by removing ambiguity and providing transparency. It creates an aligned organization and sends a consistent message to colleagues and other stakeholders. It provides a common cause to work together towards, and it encourages values that align with the business but also your personal life. In addition, these values guide strategy, policy, practice, and behavior. People pick up on signals, whether that be big or small, about how to behave at work, around customers, in situations, and so on. As leaders, it is important to be mindful of how your signals, your body language, your tone, and so on are received or perceived. Behavior that is inconsistent with these values should be stopped and should be realigned. So what does ethics mean, and who does it apply to? Ethics is defined as rules of conduct or moral principles that guide individual or group behavior. Ethics applies to all employees and at all times. All employees are expected to not engage in unlawful discrimination, harassment, bullying, or intimidation of employees, customers, vendors, and third parties. Further, employees are expected to conduct themselves in an honest and ethical manner, avoiding conflicts of interest and maintaining compliance with applicable laws, rules, and regulations. The ethics decision-making tree. Each of us makes a number of decisions each day, both consciously and subconsciously. This decision tree is a great resource to pressure test the ethicalness of a decision as it is being thought through. First, is it legal? If yes, then does it comply with the Code of Conduct and Business Ethics policy? If yes to both of those, could this create problems for the business, department, team, or yourself? And finally, if all 3 of those have been a yes so far, how would you feel if your actions appeared on the news, to your family, or to leadership? These are all quick and easy questions to consider if or when faced with an ethical decision. Integrity and ethical behavior demonstrated by having an honest, respectful, and open workplace. By using powers responsibly. Powers are classified as authority based on title, reporting structure, or access to information and to systems. Complying with proper financial management principles by reporting accurate information at all times and by not falsifying information to mislead internal or external customers. Treating information confidentially. Being mindful of privacy laws, HIPAA, or other standards related to confidentiality. Limiting public comment to facts and directing to appropriate personnel and/or to legal. Reporting unethical behavior to appropriate persons. We will discuss the reporting protocols here shortly. Recognizing, declaring, and avoiding conflicts of interest. Acting in a way that sustains public trust. You are representing the company and Wilkes Brothers at all times, whether or not you are at work. Disclosing any relevant criminal offenses both before and during your employment as required by the Wilkes Brothers Handbook. adhering to all drug and alcohol policies and regulations, not misappropriating company assets or funds. Use the company funds and assets as if it were your own, and ensure you follow proper protocols, procedures, and policies, and obtain necessary approvals. Fraud. Do not commit fraud in any form or in any fashion. Gifts and favors. Do not accept bribes, violate the law, accept gifts that obligate the company, seek personal favors, or offer and accept cash. More information on gifts and favors can be found in the Code of Conduct and Business Ethics Policy. Supervisors has implemented a new policy that provides more detailed guidance for Section 2.2 Standards of Conduct in the Wilkes Brothers Handbook. We will briefly walk through the different sections of the policy. However, you will receive a copy of this policy following the training session for both your review and signature acknowledgement. Securities law and insider trading. In the course of your duties, employees may be exposed to information about the company, its subsidiaries, or its affiliates that is not available to the general public. The use of non-public or insider information for securities trading purposes is strictly forbidden, whether by the employee or any of his or her family members or any other person to whom the employee may have communicated the information to. It is not only unethical, but also illegal and could expose the employee to civil and criminal penalties. Conflicts of interest. The company is concerned with conflicts of interest that create actual or potential job-related concerns, especially in the areas of confidentiality, customer relations, safety, and security and morale. Any actual or potential conflict of interest between an employee of the company and a competitor, supplier, distributor, or contractor to the company must be disclosed by the employee in writing to Human Resources within 7 business days of learning of a potential conflict or having reason to know of the potential conflict. If an actual or potential conflict of interest is determined to exist, the company will take such steps as it deems necessary to reduce or eliminate this conflict. Company property and corporate opportunities. Employees should not engage in any business activity that could be detrimental to or in competition with the company's business activities. Further, it is never permissible for employees to compete with or against the company, either directly or indirectly, through an entity or other individual. Employees are prohibited from taking any actions which result in a benefit to them because of their position, information, or corporate property. Employees may not receive any money, gifts, memberships, or other benefits from a third party in exchange for information, access to opportunities known or made available to the employee by virtue of his or her employment. Confidential information. Employees must recognize and understand their obligation to keep any proprietary information and trade secrets they acquire during their employment with the company confidential. This includes, but is not limited to, marketing, sales plans and information, software, services, cost, business methods, formulas, product specifications, planning, engineering, technical information, and customer information, as well as any other information which would give a third party an opportunity to obtain an advantage over the company or competitors who do not have such information. All new employees are required to sign a non-disclosure agreement as a condition of employment. Existing employees are expected to sign updated non-disclosure agreements when requested. Fraud. Intentional acts of fraud are subject to disciplinary action, including termination and possible civil and/or criminal action against the employee. Fraud, or the act or intent to cheat, trick, steal, lie, or deceive, is dishonest and, in most cases, criminal. Some examples of fraud include, but are not limited to, unauthorized handling or reporting of transactions, misusing company property or misappropriating assets, inflating sales numbers, altering or forging checks, submitting expense reports and seeking reimbursement for charges not incurred or paid by the employee for work-related activities, or falsifying or making an entry on financial statements or company records that is not in accordance with proper accounting standards and/or is not accurate. Favors and gifts. Unacceptable or inappropriate items are as follows. Do not accept or offer bribes. Do not attempt to offer or accept or offer to accept anything designed to influence your or anyone else's decisions regarding the company's business. Do not violate the law. Never participate in any activity or business entertainment activity that would violate the law or may embarrass the company by its public disclosure. Do not accept gifts that obligate the company. Do not accept a gift or service that obligates or appears to obligate you or the company to any third party, such as customers, suppliers, vendors, or other third parties, as such is prohibited. Do not seek personal favors. Do not seek favors directly or indirectly, such as entertainment, gifts, sponsorships, personal loans or loan guarantees, or contributions from individuals, companies, or other organizations doing business or seeking to do business with the company. Do not offer or accept cash. Do not attempt to offer or accept or offer to accept cash or cash equivalents, for example, gift cards, without prior approval from Human Resources. Violations of this policy will not only subject the third party, which is the vendor or supplier, to removal from the company's approved list, but could also subject the employee to disciplinary action, including, but not limited to, termination, and in some cases, criminal liability and/or monetary liability. Professionalism. All employees are expected to conform with the standards of their positions in both personal and professional behavior. Compliance with laws and agreements. This policy is not intended to restrict communications or actions protected or required by state or federal law. However, all employees shall conduct business in compliance with all applicable local, state, and federal laws and regulations at all times. If you have any questions about any local, state, or federal laws or regulations pertaining to your work or the company, please contact Human Resources or legal. Reporting of wrongdoing. If you become aware of any ethical or code of conduct concern regarding your employment or another employee, please notify Human Resources in writing within 7 business days of learning of a questionable activity, gift, or benefit. The company will investigate all concerns and will determine whether a conflict exists and what action should be taken. Knowingly false accusations of misconduct will still be subject to disciplinary action. Employees must also maintain the confidentiality of any investigation and related documentation unless specifically authorized by Human Resources or the company to disclose such information. All reports can be made to ethics hotline at wilksbrothers.com or by phone at 817-212-3300. Ethical behavior looks like the following. Be respectful and act with integrity. Be fair, objective, maintain privacy, confidentiality, and collaborate. Be a leader. Everyone is a leader and should be supporting their team, their company, and their coworkers. Be professional. Commit to the highest standards of integrity and honesty and adhere to all ethical and legal standards. Remember, you are always representing your company, your team, and yourself wherever you may be. Ethical behavior should always be reported. We have added a new reporting method to create a more easily accessible reporting option for any and all employees. This ensures that we provided clear and direct methods to report concerns to the appropriate personnel. This new method is the Wilks Brothers Ethics Hotline. The email is ethicshotline@wilksbrothers.com or it can be reached by phone at 817-212-3300. For managers and supervisors' knowledge and awareness, this phone number works as a phone tree system behind the scenes and will ring to the appropriate HR personnel. All good faith reporting of wrongdoing or potential wrongdoing will always be protected from retaliation, remain confidential to the extent possible, but not to interfere with the investigation, and be considered for investigation. The company will determine whether a conflict exists and what actions should be taken. It is important to note that intentionally or knowingly false accusations will be subject to disciplinary action up to and not limited to termination of employment. We are devoted to ensuring that good faith exists on the whistleblower's part and that they are not using this as a mechanism for complaints, wild goose hunts, or other disruptive reasons. Complaints about unethical behavior will affect the employment of the wrongdoers to include suspension, denial of raise or promotion, or termination. Now that we have covered our Code of Conduct and Ethics training, let's dive into anti-harassment training. Wilks Brothers has a strict policy against all types of unlawful workplace harassment, including sexual harassment and other forms of unlawful harassment based upon an individual's age, race, color, national origin, ancestry, religion, sex, pregnancy, which includes childbirth, lactation, and related medical conditions, physical or mental disability, genetic information, inclusive of testing and characteristics, veteran status, uniformed service member status, or any other status protected by federal, state, or local laws. All forms of unlawful harassment of or by employees, vendors, visitors, customers, and clients are strictly prohibited and will not be tolerated. Objectives for our second topic, anti-harassment training, will include the following: definition and review of unlawful harassment, review the differences between unlawful harassment versus inappropriate conduct or behavior, the importance of preventing unlawful harassment, federal and some local or state laws prohibiting harassment, Wilks Brothers policy and procedures, your expectations and responsibilities as a supervisor, summary and reporting process. Federal employment and legal context, unlawful harassment is defined as unwelcome verbal or physical conduct or actions respecting a protected class status that is severe or pervasive enough to create a hostile, abusive, or intimidating work environment for a reasonable person. What unlawful harassment is, and dive deeper into this definition and its components. Severe, pervasive, and persistent conduct that unreasonably interferes with an employee's work performance or creates an intimidating, hostile, or offensive work environment. Although harassment is typically associated with sexual harassment, there are varying forms of qualified harassment. An occurrence when employee status or benefits are directly affected by the harassing conduct of a manager or person of authority. Adverse employment actions, also known as retaliation, against employees who complain of harassment or discrimination or who participate in a complaint procedure. To summarize, harassment in any form of behavior that can be discriminatory in nature or create a hostile, abusive, or intimidating work environment. As a supervisor, it is your responsibility to recognize its behavior and to stop it. Harassment qualifications have evolved and increased over the years. Let's take a look at a few examples that are most commonly run into. Race and color is ethnic slurs, jokes, offensive or derogatory comments, or other verbal, physical conduct based on an employee's race or color. National origin is discrimination based on ancestry, birthplace, culture, or linguistic characteristics. Veteran status is not hiring or promoting a veteran for concern of active duty or training requirements, failure to return to their proper position once released from service, or harassing a veteran due to their choice of being in the military. Religious is antagonizing, ridiculing, or preaching to an employee because of their religious beliefs. Disability is discriminating against an employee based on perceived disability and/or record of a disability. It is important to note that disabilities are not always recognizable, and the ADA covers and continues to consistently add several items that are deemed to be a covered disability. For instance, alcoholism is considered a current disability under the ADA. Age is using nicknames alluding to age, not employing certain individuals based on age or retirement assumptions, forcing retirement, or not providing training opportunities based on age. Pregnancy is not providing reasonable, unpaid break time for a nursing mother, or not promoting an individual under the assumption that they may have a child or be unfit for work because of such. Sex is discrimination on the basis of sex is considered unlawful harassment under Title VII. Sexual harassment includes unwelcome sexual advances, requests for sexual favors, and other verbal or physical conduct of a sexual nature. Examples of this behavior includes submission to conduct is explicitly or implicitly a term or condition of an individual's employment, that submission to or rejection of such conduct is used as a basis for employment decisions, that such conduct has the effect or purpose of interfering with work performance or creating an intimidating, hostile, or offensive work environment, and/or that verbal or physical conduct that is mocking or belittling of women. In all cases, there is usually a quid pro quo association, also known as this for that. Quid pro quo is an abuse of power, which, if you recall in the ethics discussion, using powers responsibly is ethical, while using powers irresponsibly is considered unethical. An example of quid pro quo behavior is when an employer or supervisor, also known as someone in power, demands sexual favors of a subordinate as a condition of getting or keeping a job benefit. The environment sexual harassment creates is one of a hostile nature. In the definition, it references the reasonable person rule, which is defined as, would a reasonable person in a similar environment react the same way under similar or like circumstances? In regards to hostile work environment language, this is not just limited to that of a sexual behavior nature. Rather, this environment can occur with any form of harassment, but is most commonly associated with that of a sexual nature. While this list is not exhaustive, it is best practice to always use common sense and exercise good judgment in all circumstances. You may not always be aware if something qualifies as a form of harassment, so if you are questioning whether or not it is considered harassment, then it most likely is not something you should say, do, or act upon. Unlawful harassment versus inappropriate conduct or behavior is important because unlawful harassment is dictated by federal law, while inappropriate behavior is dictated by Wilkes Brothers, also known as the company. An employee may say they are being harassed when they are subjected to inappropriate conduct or behavior that is not illegal, but still is unacceptable in the workplace. This is more commonly referred to or known as workplace bullying. It is worth noting that bullying techniques can also be used against employees based on their legally protected statuses, which we just reviewed previously on the slide before. While all harassment is not illegal, no form of harassment is acceptable or should or will be tolerated in the workplace. Oftentimes, workplace bullying involves verbal or physical conduct that insults or shows hostility or aversion towards an individual or group of individuals. This behavior is repeated and unwanted actions made by an individual or group who intend to intimidate, harass, degrade, or offend. Bullying can sometimes be described or determined by the intent of the conduct or the action. On the next slide, we'll look at a few examples. Examples of workplace bullying include, but are not limited to, the following: use of disparaging or abusive words, phrases, slurs, negative stereotyping or threatening, intimidating, or hostile acts. Written or graphic material that insults, stereotypes, or shows aversion or hostility towards an individual or a group. This could be material that is placed on walls, bulletin boards, email, voicemail, or elsewhere on premises or circulated in the workplace. Displays of symbols, slogans, or items that are employed with hate or intolerance towards an individual or group. Profanity and verbal abuse. Humiliation, gossip, constant criticism or teasing. As the world has shifted, the line between bullying and friends joking around in the workplace continues to become a finer and finer line. Bullying is not limited to coworker issues, but can stem out to vendors, customers, site visitors, and so on. Just because you and your buddy may not feel that it's bullying or an issue, someone in passing can overhear the discussion either in full or most likely in bits and pieces, and may view any or all of it differently, or have had an experience in their lives that hits home and creates uneasiness. Preventing unlawful harassment is important for a few reasons. First, harassment harms everyone. One of the most important components of our company values are to always treat each other with dignity and respect in all circumstances. Second, we must ensure compliance with federal, local, and state laws to protect both our employees and our company. We are a Texas-based company in most all circumstances. However, certain pads, sites, locations, and so on may be in states other than Texas, which could have differing legislation, local, or other laws that may be applicable. And third, it is our collective responsibility to ensure a safe workplace exists for our team, our vendors, and others. A functioning workplace is void of harassment and allows for us to all do our jobs to the fullest capacity without pretense or other distractions. As leaders, you are always expected to demonstrate integrity and act with respect towards all team members, other companies, customers, vendors, and visitors. Lead by action at all times. If you can't do it or uphold it, why would or should you expect your team to do the same? Allowing, condoning, engaging in, or not reporting any type of harassment is in direct conflict with our values. Harassment would impact productivity in a few ways: loss of focus, inability to feel safe at work, absenteeism, bad publicity or bad reputation, lawsuits, downtime, and decline in employee morale. On the next two slides, we will briefly review the existing federal laws that are both specific to and or related to unlawful harassment. These cover a variety of differing harassment types and have generally aligned with other cultural or political pieces occurring in and around the same time in the world. As you can expect, these have changed and shifted over time since inception of the original law or act. The Equal Pay Act of 1963 was enacted to protect both men and women who perform substantially equal work in the same establishment from discrimination based on sex. Title VII of the Civil Rights Act of 1964 prohibits intentional discrimination and practices because of a person's race, color, religion, sex, pregnancy, or national origin. The Immigration Reform and Control Act prohibits employment discrimination on the basis of national origin or citizenship. The Age Discrimination and Employment Act prohibits discrimination against individuals who are ages 40 and older. This law specifically has developed over the years, and any age discrimination should be avoided. The Uniformed Services Employment and Reemployment Rights Act, or better known as USERRA, prohibits employers from discriminating against employees or applicants for employment based on their military status or military obligations. The Americans with Disabilities Act, also known as ADA, protects individuals with disabilities and those regarded as having disabilities. Lastly, the Genetic Information Non-Discrimination Act prohibits employers from discriminating against employees in hiring, firing, or any other terms and conditions of employment based on a worker's genetic information. These laws are ever-changing and can be daunting at times. Wilkes Brothers' HR team is available to support you and your hiring managers in navigating these items. All of our recruiting, hiring, and employment practices and processes help ensure compliance with current laws and regulations. Please ensure you are engaging your HR contacts and partners to better assist you. Supervisor, you play an integral and vital role in ensuring these behaviors are followed. You are expected to know, comply with, and enforce all policy and procedures. If you're unsure or have not run into this before, please do not hesitate to contact your HR team. Ensure that your team and any future team members understand the policy and expectations of the workplace. Lead by example, communicate with your team regularly, and do not let things fester or burn. Keep an open door by being available for your employees. Immediately report any complaint that you receive from your employees or that you witness involving other supervisors' employees. Report to your HR contact or to the ethics hotline. In the event of investigation, make yourself and employees on your team available for investigation interviews as requested by Human Resources. Refusal to participate in an HR investigation may involve corrective action up to and including termination. Once the investigation is completed, ensure that victims of harassment are not retaliated against and that the harassment does not continue. Here's a few quick tips on handling these complaints from employees. Show and demonstrate your willingness to hear and objectively discuss. Do not discuss in an open area or within earshot of others. Tell the employee that confidentiality will be respected as much as possible, but cannot be assured in order to investigate fully and properly. Inform the employee that you must report all complaints to Human Resources, and then immediately report to Human Resources. Maintain confidentiality by only informing HR of the complaint. It is HR's duty and responsibility to inform others as appropriate based on the investigation. Do not engage in any form of retaliation against an employee. Do not object if an employee bypasses the standard chain of command and goes directly to your supervisor or to HR. In most cases, you may have not ever dealt with these issues or been in a situation where you've had an employee complaint to navigate. We understand that many times in an investigation, the supervisor is not always the first individual contacted or discussed with. During investigations, HR will move as efficiently as possible once a claim is received. To be clear, HR does not have any preconceived notions about the issue and will make every effort to remove any potential bias in an investigation. An investigation is meant to gather facts, gain additional diligence and knowledge, and understand all relevant facets of the issue at hand. Further, HR will always ensure a fair, timely, and thorough investigation is done when a claim is received. Confidentiality will be kept to the extent possible, and misconduct is found, then appropriate action will be determined and taken. To summarize all topics from this training session: demonstrate integrity and ethical behavior at all times. Unlawful harassment is defined as unwelcome verbal or physical conduct or actions respecting a protected class status that is severe or pervasive enough to create a hostile, abusive, or intimidating work environment for a reasonable person. While not all harassment is considered unlawful, it is always unacceptable and not tolerated in the workplace. Each and every one of us is responsible for the workplace in upholding these values and behaviors. If you would not say or do it, or are unsure if it is considered unethical or harassment, then most likely you should not say or do it. Complaints about unlawful harassment and/or bullying will affect the employment of the wrongdoers to include suspension, denial of raise, denial of promotion, or termination. If you observe or have concerns regarding unlawful harassment, discrimination, or bullying, please contact the following: the Ethics Hotline or your primary HR contact. All good faith reporting of wrongdoing or potential wrongdoing will always be protected from retaliation, remain confidential to the extent possible, but not to interfere with the investigation, and be considered for investigation, and then the company will determine whether a conflict exists and what action should be taken. It is important to note that intentionally or knowingly false accusations will be subject to disciplinary action, up to and not limited to termination of employment. We are devoted to ensuring that good faith exists on the whistleblower's part and that they are not using this as a mechanism for complaints, wild goose chases, or other disruptive reasons. Complaints about unethical behavior will affect the employment of the wrongdoers, to include suspension, denial of raise or promotion, or termination. Congratulations, you have completed this training. Thank you for your time, attention, and attendance for this training session. This concludes ethics and anti-harassment training. Please ensure you sign and complete the Code of Conduct and Business Ethics Policy, which will be sent to you following completion of this training. If you need a current HR contact list sheet with all resources and contact information listed, please reach out to Austin Henyon or HR@wilksbrothers.com. Thank you.